Can you dig it, sucker?
Live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. Join the 6-time World Heavyweight Champion, 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, and WWE NXT announcer, Booker T. Booker T. Alongside his right-hand man, the BOAT, Brad Gilmore. It's time to get your champagne wishes and caviar dreams. Welcome inside the Hall of Fame. Now, can you dig that?
Welcome inside the Hall of Fame, guys. It's Booker T, 6-time world champ, 2-time Hall of Famer with my man Brad Gilmore. Brought to you by Podcast Heat. Oh, yes. Hey, man, we're in Las Vegas, Nevada right now, getting ready for the big fight going down this weekend. Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo for, all the gold. It's going to be a hell of a fight. Can't wait for that to go down. But tonight is more about Brad and I bringing Planet 13 to the world and doing something a little bit different, bringing not just the wrestling side of the Hall of Fame, but the real side of the Hall of Fame, the life side of the Hall of Fame. We're going to be doing it here tonight, coming to you again from Planet 13. Bradley, how you doing, dog? How you feel?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Book. Again, we're here in Las Vegas, Nevada, getting ready for that big fight as you put on. But people normally who hear the Hall of Fame, longtime fans, they all say the same thing. Like, you get a lot of life advice on this show. There's a lot of game given, and you've soaked it up with some guests that we've had on here. I've soaked it up from you and some guests that we've had on here, like when we had Bun on recently. Just so many gems were dropped in that one. But I think some of the topics that we plan to cover today are things that aren't discussed a lot. I guess I don't want to say publicly, but I guess publicly, right? I mean, when it comes to the wrestling industry and the entertainment industry as a whole, and some of the pitfalls of the past
Of life.
and of life as well, when it comes to all the things that you've seen in your travels and time. How many years? 33.
33 years, yeah.
In the business, 33 years in entertainment.
Yeah. On the road.
And really before that, right? I mean, because you were in the remote controls, the world-renowned dance trio.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
I mean,
No doubt.
with y'all had didn't you have like pyrotechnics at a show one time?
Yeah, I did have some pyrotechnics. Actually, a pyrotechnic difficulties.
Something blow up or
what
something?
happened was
Tell that story.
I was in a dance contest, and it was the remote controls, and we had dressed in all white on this occasion, and I didn't have a pair of white pants, but I knew my brother had a pair, and he had a sweet pair of pinstripe white, and the pinstripe.
And this is a Stevie?
Stevie Ray, yeah. So the pinstripe bled into the white perfectly. So I stole those pants, and I had a white vest to go with it, and the object of the story was we was going to be like puppets, and we was going to like a Jack in the Box. We were going to come out of the boxes. So we had 4 big boxes on stage with actually foil paper on the outside of it, where it looked like something space age, and we had these little smoke bombs that you buy at the like fireworks, those little bitty smoke bombs. They're yellow, some of them red, some of them purple, so we the plan was to light that smoke bomb so we would get the smoke effect, not realizing it got hot, and it got real hot. So we're holding it in our hand, we light it, and next thing you know, it was so hot I had to drop it in the box. And then next thing you know, it hit my pants, and my pants caught on fire. I had to put the fire on. My ass came jumping out that box. And needless to say, we didn't win that contest. Because
you don't say.
It was a disaster, but it was a good idea.
Now,
it was a damn good idea.
How old were you at this time?
Probably 13. 14.
13.
Yeah.
So you can say you've been really an entertainer, whether professionally or amateur, for your whole life, right? I mean, essentially.
Nah, me and my sister, we used to be the family entertainment at Christmas time, Thanksgiving. We always had a dance routine. It was always fun. Those are the memories, I think, are my most fondest memories as a kid is, me and my sister just acting a fool. And I think that's why I kind of gravitated to wrestling so easy, because you got to be able to make fun of yourself. You got to be able to laugh. You know what I mean? And, so for me, it's always been one of those things to where entertainment has just been, I guess a part of my life has been my escape. I've always been able to be somebody else a lot better than I could be myself. I don't know why. Even in wrestling, I've always been able to gravitate to a character. And the character, is definitely not me, but when I become the character, it becomes so much easier than actually trying to do it, throughout my own, being. It's kind of crazy. It's really weird.
Well, and the reason I bring this entertainer side of things up is because of, some of the subject matter that we plan on covering in this podcast today is when you look at some of the biggest entertainers of all time, right? You and I were just talking about a couple when we were driving through Las Vegas yesterday. We were talking about Michael Jackson, that is. We're talking about Prince. You can even go to Elvis.
Yeah.
You can go to some of the big names, the Janis Joplins of the world.
Yeah.
The Marilyn Monroe's, Amy Winehouse. So many that we're not even remembering at this moment. And something that they all have in common is that they were massive entertainers, top of their game, but they were led down the wrong path. And when I say the wrong path, I mean with their extracurricular activities. And sometimes not even extracurricular, just things that come about being in this show business, right? Because I think what people don't realize, and you can speak to this better than I, but what people don't realize about the entertainment industry is that, they see you for that, whatever it was, 15 minutes in your match on TV that night, or they see you on stage for the hour doing a concert, right? But they don't think about, okay, wait, for instance, this guy lives in Houston. He's got to get on a plane. He's got to fly out here. He's got to get a rental car. He's got to check into a hotel. He's got to go do sound check. There's all the stuff that comes before the show, and then after the show, they got to make the next town. And I feel like that's maybe a good spot to open up this conversation of getting from place to place. It's not so much the show. It's the in-between the show and the next show where all the issues come about. So I guess let's speak to that first off. When you got into wrestling, whether that be in Global or a couple years after you go into WCW, how rough was that road schedule and the travel?
I don't think it was as rough as, it was rough, okay? Don't get me wrong. When you're on the road, 21 days out of the month, it could get pretty rough. But you got to understand also, when you're young, it's a whole lot of fun at the same time. When it's something that you've never done before, you go, wow, man, this is really, really cool. I like this. No matter how tired you are, you want to stay awake as long as you probably like a little kid. You want to stay awake as long as you can. So that part right there you could deal with. I think it's it's not that like that one hit. They say, just say for instance in boxing, it's the accumulation of hits over a period of time.
Right, it's not one punch.
Exactly my point. So for me, I think in the beginning it's a whole lot of fun, and then all of a sudden, it becomes a grind because your body is starting to check out on you a little bit. Things are starting to hurt a little bit more, and then you have that stigma. Man, you don't want to lose your spot. You don't want to lose your spot.
Speak to that for people who might not know, like, the politics of, especially pro wrestling, the proverbial spot and losing the spot. Like, what does that mean exactly?
Well, I think it's all mental. I really think the spot thing is mental. as far as someone losing their spot. Because I really always felt like if someone was really, really good, the spot was always secure. But for certain guys, they could think that if they were out, a certain amount of time, somebody could slide in there and, be the flavor of the month, because this business has always been about the flavor of the month, and you don't want to take yourself out of the game, you always want to stay in the game as long as you possibly can. So I think it's a stigma and a mentality more than anything, but a lot of guys have had that stigma and that mentality.
And again, for people maybe listening and not understanding fully the spot thing, what Booker's saying, the mental part of it is, if I don't show up for this show, right, that could be it for my career, right? Like it doesn't matter if I'm sick, if I'm getting married, if my dog died, if my grandmother passed, if I'm hurt, if I'm sore, if I'm tired, if I just threw up 10 minutes ago leaving the hotel. If I don't make the show, where I am currently on the show could go away. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, you remember I always talk about the part as far as they got to be able to trust you.
Right.
They got to be able to have, full faith in you. For me, I've been, really, really in a spot to where, should I go to work or not? And my thing was, well, I'm going to show up to work whether they send me home or not. 9 times out of 10, they're going to send me home, but I'm going to show up. I'm not going to just call in and say, I'm sick and I can't make it. That's just not the way it works. Just not the way the wrestling business works. If anybody get into it thinking that, it's a business where they can call in sick one time, they have a problem. So for me, it's always been about, them being able to trust you and you being able to get out there and grind no matter what the cost may be. I remember Jake the Snake saying it in his, Beyond the Mat, where he was talking to his daughter, and his daughter was talking to him about why does he have to be on the road so much? And he told his daughter, when you sign that WWF contract, honey, you are obligated to work every day. And that's kind of true in this business. It's always been that way. It's always been a grind. For me, I've always been able to understand what this business is about as far as the grind goes and being able to preserve myself. And I think it was all because of the way I came up as a kid.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of these guys that get into the wrestling business, they really never had a job. This is all they've ever done. This is all they've ever wanted to do. For me, being able to avoid those pitfalls as a grown man was because I saw those pitfalls when I was a young boy, when I was a kid. Preteen age, I saw the pitfalls. I lost my father when I was 10 months old. I lost my mother when I was 13 years old. Life on the street, becomes pretty hard. I lost my direction after that happened. And
after your mother passed?
Yes, yeah. After my mother passed, pretty much lost my direction, a 13-year-old. As far as school was something that I really wanted to do, but I wasn't equipped to do because I wasn't in the right environment to do. I always thought about being Perry Mason, and not to have had a chance to do that because I wasn't in the right place for this, to be schooled properly. So
you had like aspirations of being a lawyer or an investigator?
Yeah, I really did.
That's awesome.
I really wanted
I didn't know
to
that.
do something on that level. I mean, at least that's what I thought about. Whether it ever happened or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, it's something that I did aspire to want. But things didn't go the way that was planned. Let's just say that. As a kid, when my mother passed, I got swept up in the system pretty much. I became, my own boss. I made my own rules. Nobody could tell me what to do. Ended up quitting school because.
And how old were you?
17.
17.
Because there was no focus there. There was no direction. So the schooling totally went to the wayside. Then started running with the boys, trying to be a man. Not knowing what a man really is, not ever being taught what a man should be, having to figure it out on my own. That's when things can really, really get tricky. But before running with the boys, that time in between, I got a chance to see life on the street as far as the pimps, the pushers, the prostitutes running around, the drug deals being made, guys getting shot and killed right before my very eyes. It was so real. I remember being, a young kid, I guess, 16, 17, down on the corner of Commerce and Maine.
So this is like downtown.
Yeah, downtown.
Houston.
And I had a little job, and I had to catch the bus. And I saw this guy walking back and forth, pacing. So I said, let me take myself out of the situation for a second. Come back 5 minutes later, he had stabbed a guy in the heart, guy on the ground, dying, right before my very eyes. I remember being, a young kid at the car wash, and one of my friends, Ted, got in a fight with another kid. Guy go to, square off on Ted. Ted pulls out a gun and shoot him. Guy's friend pulls out a shotgun, shoot Ted, right before my very eyes. I remember growing up as a youth, a young kid as well. My best friend, Robert Barkins. Before that, his name was Robert Wheatfall. His mother got married, changed his name. That's how close I was to this kid, you know. I used to go hang out with him, out in Missouri City. Ended up moving from South Park to Missouri City. We were best friends. He got into it with a kid at the Phase 4 skating ring and ended up going to jail because he didn't just get into it with the kid. He ended up shooting the kid and killing him. And then he goes to jail.
How old was he?
16. He
tried as an adult?
Yeah, but it didn't even get to that point because he hung himself in jail. Killed himself. So I got to see like so much life and so much trauma, as well as so many people ruin their lives on drugs, being strung out on drugs and literally lose everything that they've built, lose it all just because of getting addicted, getting caught up.
And this is what, early 80s, late 70s?
Late 70s.
Late 70s.
Yeah.
And this is what? I mean, this is heroin. This is crack. This is.
It was crack wasn't really on the scene at that time. It was more like syrup.
Okay, so like promethazine codeine.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Always been a Houston.
They had these pills that they would mix with it. They would take this Quaalude.
Oh yeah.
And they would take the Quaalude and take it apart and put it in the syrup and mix it, shake it up, and people were walking around like zombies. They call it a Jim Jones special. And
no, they're not referring to the rapper Jim Jones. This is
but I saw the needles as well. I saw the effect of it and what it did to so many people. Women, there again, leave their families and their kids and everything to have that drug.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a life that I saw as a kid. So for me, way before I ever got into business, I saw the destruction of it, and I just knew if it could do it to them, it could easily do it to me.
But that's my question, is like, in that situation that you were in, you know, like you said, you weren't given the right direction, out of school at 17, you see your friends getting in trouble, like you said, running with the boys, the shootouts, the pimps, the pushers, the prostitutes, as you said. I mean, why didn't you fall into the drugs?
Why didn't I fall into the pimping?
Or the pimping?
Why did I fall into the drugs? Why did I fall into the life? Just because when you see just say for instance, a man beat up a woman,
right,
with his bare hands, and nothing's done about it. No, there's no recourse. There's no prosecution. There's nothing. It's just, as well as the woman, she's not going to leave. She's going to go right back to him, and she's going to go back out there on the street, and she's going to come back and give him that money. And I saw it up close and personal. For me, I just thought that was a cowardly act, and I wished as a little kid that I could do something about it. I wish that I could have fought, for those women.
Yeah.
And I just knew it did something for me as a kid that I was going to take with me as a man as well. You're never going to hear any stories about me putting my hands on any woman ever in my life because of
what you saw,
what I saw. And I go, wow, how could a person be so cruel? And then, who's going to do something about it?
Right.
Yeah.
Seeing those things, a lot of people would say, well, this is just normal behavior, and then they wouldn't think twice about it, right? It had the opposite effect on you, which is, strange. But let's kind of go forward a little bit, get to more the root of what we were going to talk about. So you see all these drugs going on, and they were, and let me not make the assumption, they were easily accessible to you if you wanted them, right? BT, they were easily accessible to you if you wanted them.
No, I mean...
they were there in the street. I mean, you could go out and find it if you wanted it.
You could find anything you want on the street. I mean, it was like a pharmacy. It wasn't like... As well as back then, it was cheap.
Right.
It wasn't like it, hard to find or anything like that. There's a little place in Houston called the Waterfront. That's where all the action was. And I was on the waterfront listening to Willie Hutch and, seeing Foxy Brown way before, the movie. And
Willie's a bad man. Willie has some great tunes.
My sister had a place that she used to run called the Seashore Lounge. And I was in that place as a kid, washing dishes and, watching the action, seeing the players come in. And the thing is, too, when you see one of these movies where, like, the players ball, it was really like that.
Wow.
It was really like that 100%. The pimps was the pimps. The players were the players. The hookers was the hookers and the hoes was the hoes. It was crazy, man. It was crazy. And for me as a kid watching this, it did something to me also, as far as I got a chance to see, I think, the lewdness of life well before I should have.
Yeah.
When kids were... studying and doing the homework, I was on the waterfront hanging out watching hookers running around.
Yeah.
Get paid, and flying cars down, it's kind of different for me to be able to talk to kids,
Well, they're looking for X. You're trying to solve for that algebraic equation.
Exactly. So,
you're like, you know what I saw last night?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was kind of very eye-opening in that sense, and that definitely made me grow up really, really quick. Yeah.
And the reason I think we're going down this path of kind of talking about your upbringing as relates to the subject matter at hand, because you get into entertainment, you get into the wrestling business. It was safe to say at the time where you came in, which is just after what a lot of fans, and even the era is described as the cocaine 80s, right, where that was the drug of choice for a lot of people, not just in wrestling, just in general, the cocaine 80s. And then you move forward into when you broke in the 90s. When do you remember seeing the culture of pro wrestling for the first time? Because at that time, drugs, for better or for worse, actually for worse, were a part of the culture of wrestling.
It's always been a part of the culture, I guess, of wrestling. But it's always been a part of the culture of life.
That's true.
I think. I don't think.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. I don't think it's, just, relegated to professional wrestling or anything like that. I think with the drug thing, no matter where you are, you can get caught up. You can be, like I say, just out in the club and meet someone, and you've never done drugs for the first time, because you with that person and want to impress them, you do it. And then from that point on, you want more of that hit one more time. For me in wrestling, I saw it pretty much from the beginning when I started in, the WWA. You saw guys that did certain drugs and they had their certain kicks and whatnot that got them, to their points. But for me, I just never was one of those guys to, want to experience drugs at that level. But when the more I moved up the ladder, like going to the Global Wrestling Federation, you got a chance to really see it because, it was a lot of veterans down there and they were a little bit more hardcore. And then you get to WCW, and that was a totally different animal because we start traveling around the world. When you start traveling around the world, as well as when you become quote unquote a star, that's when people don't want you to buy anything. They want to take care of you. Hey, I got this for you. Hey, slide that under the table to you. A little handshake, whatnot. A little something, a little handoff. Hey, whatever you need. It's one of those type of deals. Hey, I got that for you. Just say for instance, you go to the bar, you can get drunk. Because everybody want to, I got your next round. It's one of those type of things. You become a star. So that's when the pitfalls can happen because it feels good. It feels good to be catered to.
Right.
It feels good to be the star of the show. It feels good to be the guy, the man, the champ. That stuff, it feels good. It's intoxicating. It really is. But if you don't know how to handle it, it can consume you. It can be like, when I was that young 19-year-old kid with my boys, and we running around getting in our trouble and, committing crimes. Felt good, getting away with it.
Yeah.
The euphoria you get out of it. And then that whirlwind start to spin. It's spinning the whole time. You just don't realize how fast it's getting, and once you realize how fast it is, you can't get out. You're in it. You stuck in it until it stops. When I was that young kid, when that whirlwind stopped, I was on my way to TDC, Texas Department of Corrections. In life, you get caught in that whirlwind, just like the Kurt Angle situation.
Yeah.
You can find yourself, trying to feed, whatever habit that you have, any means necessary, by any means necessary, and it can take you down a dark, dark place. And that's what the wrestling business, it could be. But there it is.
It's what you make it, though, right?
Any entertainment, form of entertainment, any form of life can take you down that same road. You got to be able to handle those pitfalls, those obstacles, and those temptations more than anything, because those temptations are going to drive you. They're going to eat at you, and and it's not something that that's going to happen just once. It's going to happen all the time. You have to really be almost testing yourself in situations when you're out there, because if you don't look at everything like it's a test, you're gonna fail it sooner or later. There again, I've been offered to party, and if you don't know what partying means, you can end up in a whole lot of trouble.
You can say, yeah, I like to party.
I like to party.
Have fun.
Exactly. So you got to know the term.
That's what I would say.
Exactly. Look, that's what I said.
And then you figure out what party means.
No. Just for instance, I was out one time I was in a club in Houston, and this girl goes, "Hey, you party?" And I go, "Yeah, hell yeah, I party." Because, I thought that we was about to party. And then when I realized, she goes, well, we can go and buy, a 8-ball of this. And I'm like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. Not that kind of party. That's not what I'm talking about, But the thing is, just think about it for a second. If I was weak, I would have said, okay, yeah, let's go get it. Because I want to be with her. And forget about what this one night could lead to. Could lead to destruction. That one night, you just think about like the Len Bias story. He was a kid. When Len Bias took his first and only hit of cocaine, killed him.
And it can be that easy.
Yeah, but what led him to actually take that first hit?
Right.
Being that kid, being that All-American, being the guy that just got drafted to Boston, getting ready to take the Celtics to the next level. What made him take that hit? That's the question.
Right. But when it comes to wrestling, if we can speak to that for a second, you see the culture as it was, like you said, with any form of industry or entertainment or life. But this is one where you're taking a lot of abuse on the body. And a lot of guys go to, like you mentioned Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's been very public about, his
so many guys.
Demons,
so
right?
Many guys,
yeah, there's been a lot, though. I mean, you heard him from Scott Hall, God rest his soul. Shawn Michaels has been public about his past drug use. Marty Jannetty, who was his tag partner. Many guys. I mean, we can go down the list of a lot of guys. You would imagine it's not just because they want to party. Some of it's because, hey, I'm hurting a little bit, right? You got a painkiller for here. Oh, this will get you up for the match. I think that was another thing Jake would say, right? You take a bump to get up for the match, and then you take a sleeping pill to come down from it.
Yeah.
Right? Or a painkiller to come down from it.
Yeah.
And that was a real reality for a lot of guys. And I'm not saying you mention anybody specific, but is that something that you saw guys doing, especially in your earlier years?
Oh man, look, honestly, so many guys I've seen coming to this business that's so straight-laced, never had a drink, never took a pill, never did anything like that. And then after a few years on the road, I think the hardest part about the road is the mental portion. The physical part is, we can bear that. But the mental part, it starts weighing on you. It starts weighing on you. Like I said, you start thinking about those injuries. You start thinking about slowing down a little bit. And then you got to figure out how you're going to keep up. How you going to keep up? What am I going to do to keep up? What's going to get me up and get me to the gym? First thing in the morning. What's going to do that? I'm going to get up, get me a cup of coffee. I'm going to take something, and then I'm going to get in the gym. What's going to get me through the rest of the day? Let me take a couple of more. And then you find yourself compounding that over, periods of times over and over and over. And then you find yourself living on that, waking up in the morning, not having that is the worst thing in your life. So you figuring out, okay, now how am I going to manage making sure I keep that? So your brain is automatically stuck on pills and making sure I keep up with my intake. I've seen guys have a calendar laid out to how many pills that they have to take, how many that they have to get, how many doctors that they have to see. It is one of those things to where once you go down that rabbit hole, it's really hard to come out. And the thing is, it starts with injuries. It starts with those nagging injuries to where, okay, I'll take one now and I'll feel a little bit better, but then there again, you know, I better take another one. It's going to make me feel a little bit better than that. Man, I'm really hurting, and I need to get off the road. That's the way it was back then. I'm so glad it's a lot different now. I know I should take myself off the road, but I can't, you know, because if I do that, there again, my spot might get taken. I got a family to feed. Not thinking about it's such a conundrum. It really is. It's such a conundrum because you don't want to be in that position, but you find yourself in that position. And you find yourself in that position not knowing how to get out of that position once you get in it. Because addiction, I really can't speak on pills or anything like that. I know, and I know I'm going on.
No.
It's really hard for me to speak on the addiction of pills because I've never been a pill guy. I've never been someone that, you know, woke up in the morning and felt like I needed a pill. I've been a guy that could have surgery and they would give me a prescription and I would take a couple of those pills and the rest of the bottle would still be in the cabinet just because I felt like I was okay.
Yeah.
Give me a Tylenol. And there, I tell the story about if something is too good for you, it's bad for you. I tell the story about being in the hospital and they giving me Dilaudid and me having a hallucination to where I'm playing golf in the PGA. It made me feel so good. I had just had surgery and it felt like I could get up and walk out of the hospital with no problem. So I knew that was not something that was good for me, but you got people that would admit themselves just to get that drug because that's how strung out they are on having that feeling. Now, do those people actually want to do that? They're probably fighting it every single day. How can I get off of this? But once you get on it, it's really hard to get off.
So the guys are doing, you know, these things. You see it, you know, the calendars, the cycles, and you know, what they all got to do. They got to jump through hoops just to get that fix of the prescription medications.
Yeah.
Right, is what you're talking about. What I guess, because for people who don't know, we did an interview here recently in one of the sites. They were talking about helping talent avoid the pitfalls of the past. Was the headline of the article, and the crux of the idea is you talking about how cannabis and cannabis-related products could have helped a lot of these guys live a different life. And I want to ask you this because a few years ago, everybody knows the comic Jim Belushi. Jim Belushi had a show on Discovery called Growing Belushi, where now in Oregon, he's a marijuana farmer, and he runs that's what it's called, right? Is it an orchard? It's a farm, right? A marijuana farm?
Yeah.
I don't know what the technical term is for it, but I mean, that's what he's running up there. And when I was talking to him, his brother, John Belushi, who is a well-known drug user, addict for cocaine, pills, whatever he could get, alcohol, things he'd get his hand on, John Belushi died very young. And his brother, Jim, told me, had he had access to cannabis or cannabis-related products, he would still be here to this day. So speak on what you think the benefits are of that path versus a pill path, I guess, would be the way to frame the question.
I mean, I can only speak from experience. And I've watched, so many, friends, just say relatives, like my uncle died from pancreatic, from drinking and, I've seen so many of my friends, die in the wrestling business due to taking, somas,
And what's a soma?
Soma's a muscle relaxer.
Okay. And that was a common? I've heard that.
That was a common drug that guys used to take, but it was literally for relaxing the muscle, but you could do too much of anything, and it really made you feel good. I remember this one drug also that they sold in GNC. It was called Renutrient. And the guys were really, really hooked on that. Renutrient was a bodybuilding supplement that you should take at nighttime, that it worked in your sleep. But the guys realized, man, you take a drink of that, and man, you can get really, really, really high off of it.
Yeah.
Halcyon. Halcyon was another drug that guys, was taken way back in the day that would just, boom, put you to sleep like that. And for me, I saw it like up close and personal, Vicodin, what it was doing to, like so many of the boys.
Right, that's a painkiller, right? Vicodin.
It's a painkiller. Percocet.
Another painkiller.
Another painkiller. Darvocet.
Oh, I don't know that one.
No, that's another painkiller. Now, I mean, for me to know all of these names, I was around.
Sound like you're a doctor.
No. When you watch the movie The Wrestler,
yeah,
with Mickey Rourke, and you see him take out the pill bottle and he shake it. He knew exactly how many pills was left in there, just because that's what I've seen up close and personal with my very own eyes, and not just that, you can see the guys, it make them feel good, but you can see them deteriorating at the same time.
Yeah.
Right before your very eyes.
Yeah.
And for me, it was something that I just didn't want for myself. Marijuana, CBD. Has always been something for me. If I had to turn to it, I knew I could turn to it, and it wasn't going to change my personality. It wasn't going to make me a different person, and I wasn't going to do anything stupid because I smoked a joint,
right?
Or took a CBD. I just think, from a common sense perspective, I've seen it with my own eyes. As well as I'm 58 years old, and I'm still here, and I still got pretty much part of my senses left with me as well. At 58, and I've seen so many guys, over the years of my friends at 58 years old that's not faring as well as I am, and I know it's due to the way I treated myself on the road. Now, Can you contribute everything to pills? No. A lot of guys partied. They burned the candle at both ends. They did alcohol.
Mixtures.
It was a mixture of it as well. For me, I wasn't the guy. I was in my room playing my video game. I would occasionally have a drink, but it wasn't something that I could never get drunk. If I got drunk, I felt like, I was out of my senses. I was out of control, so no one has ever seen me once drunk other than hanging out with the Undertaker occasionally.
Well, I think that he probably brings it out of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was going to say, I've known you for now 11 years. I've never seen you inebriated once.
Well, it's just not something. My body just doesn't, function well that way. So I just, I tend to not want to go down that road just because I've seen so many people go down that road, and it's not a pretty sight seeing somebody sloppy drunk. It's not a pretty sight seeing someone fall over, and, it's not a pretty sight seeing someone being an angry drunk and wanting to, get into a fight because they're drunk.
Right.
They want to cause trouble. That kind of stuff for me has always been eye-opening experiences that I just did not want to have.
Yeah. Well, to me, then to go back to it about when we talk about the injuries, the muscle soreness, the nagging wear and tear of being on the road. And you were hinting at CBD there for a moment. We now live in an age to where I guess the interesting dichotomy is all those drugs that those guys were doing, the pills, the What'd you say, Darvocet? What is it?
Percocet, Darvocet.
Percocet, Darvocet,
Yeah.
all those things. What?
Yeah.
At that time, those were still all, according to the laws of the land, legal. I don't know if
And
they
they
got
still
them.
are.
And they still are.
Yeah.
I don't know if they got them all by legal means or not, but they were all legal drugs. For the longest, cannabis-related products, marijuana specifically, things with THC involving in them, have been illegalized in the country for, at least my entire lifetime and prior to that.
Yeah.
And now, though, there's an age and a generation, and where 38.
I made the mistake of doing this. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
But I was trying to introduce you to my fiance, and I said, "This is King."
King of the world.
King of the world.
King of the world.
King of the world. But now.
All right, I'll see you guys in a minute. All right.
But now.
We were sharing it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Another moment. Another moment.
But the what I was saying is, we're in a generation now where 38 states in the United States have a legalization of the product in some form or another, either medicinally or fully recreational, like it is in Las Vegas, Nevada, New York, Massachusetts, Colorado. I know there are more that I can't think of off the top of my head that have full recreational usage, and even in our home state of Texas, where it is still illegal. Certain cities have decriminalized it, and there's also statewide use of CBD products that are made from the hemp plant that are good for what the kind of purpose of this talk is: athlete recovery, and making sure that the guys and girls don't follow down the same paths as people did back maybe in your generation, the generation prior, right, and the generation after you. Trying to make sure they don't go through that. What have you, and even other professional sports organizations like the National Basketball Association, I don't believe is testing for marijuana or marijuana-related products. So it'd be kind of hard when a lot of their teams are in states where it's recreationally legal. It'd be kind of difficult to enforce that rule.
No.
What do you think? Do you think that's a step toward the right direction? Legalization, in especially in terms of what we're talking about, athlete recovery.
Well, in so many more ways, though, Brad, it's a positive step because criminalizing marijuana is so many young kids right now in jail here in Texas.
Right.
Well, they're in Texas, because of marijuana, and some in jail for the rest of their lives, and for that plant. And I just don't think it's something that is right with so many other drugs out there. Being looked at as legal, you know what I mean? Drugs I'm talking about is pharmaceuticals. Drugs I'm talking about alcohol. Drugs I'm talking about is cigarettes.
Right.
When you look at something like that have killed so many people, and then we look at marijuana, that right there is one thing, and not just so many young people, so many young blacks. Young men and young women are in jail because of that one thing, and I just feel like somebody don't do something about it, it's going to continue to, just perpetuate nonsense more than anything. As far as the CBD, as far as the recovery of it, as far as guys being able to choose how they want to recover, opposed to a doctor telling them they need to take that pill to recover. I think that right there is, I think that's a huge talking point. That's a huge issue right there, because me personally, I think something that comes from the ground is a whole lot more natural than some scientists getting into a laboratory and creating and saying this is what you need. That's just me. Now, something like that, I could be 100% wrong. I could be 100% wrong, but I would want to make that choice if that plant could help me, opposed to something some pharmaceutical company created for me.
Right. I think sometimes people make a mistake of just because a doctor gives it to you means it's good for you, right? And I am not also saying that the doctors do anything nefarious. Doctors go to school, they're taught, here are the symptoms, here's the prescription that'll help those symptoms, right? But in the same respect, what you're saying, if there are natural benefits to something that's naturally occurring, perhaps that should be explored at a greater basis than...
I got prescribed Adderall at one point.
Okay. So Adderall is the focus drug, if you have ADD or what have you, right?
Yeah. And if I was an addictive personality, I would need that every day.
It was good?
Oh, my God, man. I thought the sky was as blue as I ever saw it.
Yeah.
I had spider senses. I gave one to Charmel. She stayed up to 6 o'clock in the morning, cleaned everything in the house. Couldn't go to sleep.
Right.
You think that's good for you?
No, I mean, it's essentially medical grade speed, right, is what it is.
Exactly my point, but that's something that they can prescribe to you. And for me, I'd rather not go down that road to tackle my ADHD.
Right.
I think I would rather try to figure out some other way
some
to try
method.
to fix it, opposed to going down that rabbit hole, because I know that's not something that's natural that makes me feel that way, because it's supernatural. It's unreal. Right. It makes you feel like you can conquer the world. And for me, that's something that I don't need, because I have a saying, if it's good, it's bad. If it's something that's really, really good, like cocaine and every other drug,
right.
if it makes you feel that good, it's not that, it's bad for you.
Right.
So for me, I just feel like we should be able to make that choice as for it. Now, if it's something that that's going to affect what I'm doing, if it's something that's going to affect my daily and my job on a regular, thing is you're going to be the first one to see it. You're going to be
Yeah.
not just you.
Yeah.
My boss.
Right. Anybody
that I work for. Anybody that I work with. They're going to be the first one to see it. They're going to say, man, Book's acting a whole lot different lately.
Right.
And what's wrong with him? That's what drugs do to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what real drugs do to you. They alter your senses. They alter your ability to think straight. And I don't think marijuana... Now, the movie Cheech and Chong, it's a lot of fun.
Right.
There's a lot of embellishment in those movies.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be smoking a 10-foot joint.
Right.
But in the movies, you can do that.
Well, yeah, it's make-believe.
Movies are to be embellished.
Right.
And I think when people saw a lot of those movies, Reefer Madness, of course, back in the day, it was a stigma on marijuana and, THC. But when they did it with alcohol back in the Prohibition days, they
the 20s.
did it through speakeasies. They made it seem cool. They had actors on television smoking cigarettes so everybody could want to do it. So they did it from a totally different platform as far as advertising go, to make you feel like it was something that was actually good for you. And I think that was a bait and switch. It worked. It worked very well. But I think people now finally in 2023 is waking up and seeing the benefits outweigh the option.
Yeah, I think that like with other things, it's a stigmatized issue. Now, again, I can only speak from what I've read and what I understand, not being anybody who's ever had a sip of alcohol in his life, marijuana, or any prescription drugs for that matter, like painkillers. But if I'm looking at it like a logical person, right? Not somebody speaking from experience, but somebody speaking from a logical standpoint. What you laid out a moment ago, to me, is very paramount and germane to the root of this discussion, which is, if something grows from the ground, it's probably better for you. One could you just assume, right, with logic, that it would be better for you than something that's a chemical compound. There's a show on right now called I think it's called Painkillers on Netflix that talks about OxyContin. And OxyContin's chemical compounds are identical to heroin.
Yeah.
And they were prescribing these things like Tic Tacs.
Oh, yes.
and to see what this has to see, you know, what that has done to people's lives versus also what marijuana, the illegalization of it, not the effects of it, but the illegalization of it has done to people's lives.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that I think is ridiculous in this country, which is the land of the free, right? The home of the brave. To me, if you're just across an imaginary line in the sand, it's the difference between life in prison and freedom of your life. Now, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm a very logical person who, if you can explain it to me and make it make sense, I'll believe you. But no one can make that make sense to me. Yeah. And I think that until we can get to a point to where, and I think that they made good steps in this direction, even in our home city of Houston, you know, until we can get to that, you know, we can't say that, you know, we're a country of complete freedom when you have these imaginary lines keeping people in prison.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's been a big problem. I remember never told this story before. I remember one time I was, I guess I was about 16, and I was staying with my one of my sisters at this little motel, and she wanted me to go and get a little sack, and little sack is like about $5-10 worth of weed, you know, little $10 sack.
Is that what they mean? Like by like a, what's the word?
What?
No, go ahead. I can't think of it.
$10 bag, $10 sack. You know?
Okay.
And
dime bag.
Dime bag.
Is that what that is?
That's what that is.
I was trying to think of the dime bag Daryl.
So she gave me the keys.
Yeah.
16, right?
Right.
I go to Third Ward because I was going to school at Yates, so I knew exactly where the little spot was. And I go upstairs, get it, come back down, get in the car, heading back to the motel, and police car pulled me over. And I'm scared, man. I'm scared. So I stashed the little $10 bag in my underwear, and then the cop, black cop too, black police officer. He rolls up on me and said license and registrations, and I go, sorry sir, I don't have a license. He go, what are you doing over here? Well, I was just going to see a friend. He said, come on man, where is it? Give it to me. I already know exactly where you went and everything. So I pull the dime bag out and I give it to him. He said, you know you can be in a lot of trouble for this, right? You know, I'm sweating bullets, you know. He said, but I'm gonna let you go. And then I said, you gonna let me go? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah. I said, you gonna let me go? He goes, yeah, I'm gonna let you go. And I got ready to leave. He goes, but no. If you leave, I'm gonna have to arrest you for possession. And then I said, but you can have it. He said, but I don't want it. I said, well, I'll throw it away right here. He said, if you do that, I'm gonna have to arrest you for littering. He said, so what you gonna do? He made me eat that dime bag, and he let me go.
Wow. And what did you take from that?
Don't ever put myself in a situation because something can happen.
Well, I think we've gone down a path that's an enlightening one for a lot of people listening, things that they haven't maybe thought about or considered prior to. And I think it's been an awesome ride in a way. Right? A lot of game. But you were about to have a meet and greet. You got people lining up to see you all these years later. A long way from that car when you were 16 in Third Ward, huh? You've come a long way.
It's crazy, man. I never told that story, man. But
yeah, I'd never heard that.
That officer, where he is, man, I just want to thank him. Because
it could have been a rap for you then. It could have been a rap.
Well, it was a life lesson, though. Mm-hmm. It was only a dime bag. It was only marijuana, and he knew it.
Right.
And he knew that putting me in jail could have gotten me a record. I didn't learn fully from that experience, but it definitely taught me a life lesson that I could share with someone. Yeah.
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 Well, an incredible day, but I know you have some things to get to. We're an hour in, which is about when we need to wrap things up.
I want to thank everybody for stepping inside the Hall of Fame, getting your champagne wishes, caviar dreams, Brad, all the heavy lifting. But right now, like I always say, peace. We love you. And we out.
The Ed Milet Show showcases the greatest peak performers sharing their journey, knowledge, and thought leadership.
This is one of the all-time best pieces of advice ever given on the show.
Actor Rainn Wilson.
The number one thing that psychologists point to with young people of why they are struggling so much in this mental health epidemic is they don't have resilience. So how do you build resilience if you don't understand suffering itself?
The Ed Milet Show is available on YouTube or wherever you listen.
Hi there. Sorry for the interruption, but are you enjoying this show on Google Podcasts? You should know that the Google Podcasts app is going away this spring. That's right, going away, gone as in no longer available. You can still enjoy this show elsewhere though. Try out Spotify or Amazon Music, or maybe TuneIn is more your style. Whatever app you switch to, be sure to follow so you never miss the next episode. And thanks for listening, wherever you listen.